So feel free to take it away, Julie.
Okay. Well, thank you so much to Greg and Erica for putting this together. I'm just talk and click at the same time here. Can everybody see that? You can see my screen? Yes? Okay. I want to thank you both, Chamber of Commerce, especially for doing this. This is a great opportunity for us to share in the community and get some of this information out. It's been drinking like out of a fire hose lately for us, trying to figure out how we can best help. And I was delighted to hear that, and talking to Greg last week, that you're coming up with some really great ideas. And this was just one of them, and they were amazing how quickly they put this together. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to talk today about financial impacts and opportunities. There's a lot of positives here that we can focus on. And I want to focus on basically on the business owners, what we can do. I also want to thank my colleagues in the accounting industry. I've had a lot of help in terms of sharing resources with my colleagues across the country that are CPAs, and they've been great. We've been trying to help each other too to help our clients. And so that's been a great collaboration. I put my own disclaimer on here, just saying it is general information. Please use this as your starting point for your own research and action plan. The rules and their interpretations may change. I've been seeing this for the last week. As we look at something, we interpret it, and then something else comes out and we go, oh, well, maybe they meant that. So it could still change. We're trying to be as accurate as we can with the information that we have. But it's all pretty new. So with that, I want to get started. The overview, I want to start with kind of what businesses need now. And some of that, I think, is a little introspection. And I'm going to go over that. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the legislative acts, focusing on things that I think the small business owners are looking at and most important to them, because there are so many things out there that it is a little overwhelming. So, I mean, I'm not going to cover everything, but I'm covering what I think I heard the feedback from our clients in the last day, that's 24 hours of these calls. Getting a little bit into the types of loans, how do you choose, and then some other stimulus that we have available beyond loans. I want to start, though, with a perspective. I think this is really important for us to have the right perspective and going through this together. And I really like this quote by Wayne Dyer. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you think about that, I think there's a lot of truth in it. And I think it's good right now to every once in a while pause during this time and think about, how is my perspective changing, and am I really thinking positively and through the right lens, so to speak. So that leads to the right mindset. What's the right mindset? We have to realize this is temporary. It is going to end. We are going to come through it. Our country's been through a lot of crises. Things could be a lot worse. They have been worse than they are right now. We've been through various recessions. There's always winners and losers. Of this, we want to help our clients and the community be winners coming out of this. There is a way out. It's not going to be easy, and you may struggle, but I really feel confident that there are lots of opportunities here that we can come out and be better businesses. So the other thing to think about is, what can we learn from this whole experience? And who do we serve? What's our purpose as a business owner? And will business ever be business as usual again? Maybe not. Maybe it'll be better. It'll most likely be different. I don't see us coming back to the exact same place we were before this all started, but hard times tend to push motivation and creativity, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I want to focus on having the right mindset through this. What business owners need, obviously, number one, people are immediately thinking about cash flow. Oh my gosh, this is a problem. My business is disrupted, and I need to figure out cash flow. Yes, you do. As an accountant, yeah, I understand that. But it's more than that. And it also means maintaining your morale within your company, your team members, as much as possible, especially for those businesses who have had to shut their doors. How do you maintain that? Because you still have a business here, but you're temporarily potentially closed or diminished in terms of what you can do. this is when your essential purpose, your mission, your purpose comes into play more than ever. When times are good, and people don't tend to think about that, but when times are tough, you need to kind of go back to what your primary purpose is, of who do you serve, and then look at kind of retooling. How do I change things up to make things better? So on cash flow side, I'm recommending doing a 3-month cash flow plan. To some people that might seem really daunting, to others it's like, yeah, that's easy. I say 3 months because 90 days is something conceptually most people can kind of grasp. And it kind of coincides with kind of what's our current thinking about. This is a relatively, hopefully short-term crisis that will come out of this within months as opposed to years. And focusing on that gives you, that's kind of a little forward thinking, what's going to happen in the next 3 months? And to get there, you are going to want to look back, of course, to say, hey, what's been happening in the last 6 to 12 months, hopefully 12 months, looking at expenses, looking at what's your baseline, where have you been? And if you have financials and tax returns, that's awesome. You're in a good place. Even if you don't, if you're just a very small business and you don't have monthly financial statements, you can still go back and look at your banking records, your credit card record statements, things like that, to try to identify, hey, what are my monthly expenses? What do they average? So then I can kind of put something together to know what I need. If you've never done this before, it's going to create quite a bit of awareness as to, hey, what do I really need to survive this? And that'll help you feel more comfortable with it. Of course, looking at cash flow and moving forward, we want to think about generating more revenue. That may mean new channels of revenue. Talking about more revenue right now, yeah, it's a challenge, but it means thinking differently. Maybe your current revenue source has been disrupted or diminished, but there maybe is a new channel where you can make something else happen. And then, of course, reducing expenses. Go through and say, hey, what's really necessary now? Do I have some fat on the bone here over the years that I've got a lot of things built up? A lot of these subscriptions. I mean, I'm terrible at, you sign up for something and then you never cancel it. So we may have built up a lot of expenses that really, if you look forward, aren't that necessary. And then, of course, extending payments. And we have some provisions where we can actually have some help from the government to do that. And once you've gone through all that, looked at the past, having a good feeling for what your income and expenses have been, and then look forward for 3 months, then you can have a better feeling like, gosh, do I really need to jump in and get a cash injection of my business right now? Or is it 2 weeks from now? Or am I okay for the next month? Do I need to get a loan, or do I need to inject maybe my own capital? If I'm really debt averse and I don't want to get a loan, would you consider putting some of your own personal capital into your business? That's, of course, risky, and maybe you don't want to do that. That's something you want to talk to a professional about. Is that a good idea right now? Morale, mental health is really important right now. And as leaders of your businesses, your mental health is really important to try to help lead your team, inspire your team. Or even if you're a sole proprietor without any employees, your mental health is still important because you're the only one that's going to be here to help your business survive. So reach out to your colleagues, either create a mastermind group or maybe reconnect one. Those can be really helpful. I know some of you are already doing that. Stay in business, stay relevant, keep your message out there, sell something. Even if you are, and Olivia, I know you're one of the businesses that's forced to shut down right now, but try to stay relevant for your customer base. Try to get your messages out there as much as you possibly can. Find ways to stay connected so that when this does come back, you're right there. Do your best to keep talented employees. Maybe you need to find ways to keep them working for your really key employees, and offer up excess capacity. And actually, Greg had mentioned this as part of one of the things that the chamber is working on, is if you're still working, but your company's open, but you don't have as much activity going on, you have excess capacity. And maybe you can partner with another business to help them now that they can help you later. There's certainly ways that we can think about that. And I mentioned purpose. think about it. Do you have one? Has your company written down a mission statement and a purpose? If you have, can you still fulfill it? Is your purpose really now becoming crystal clear, or are you realizing that, you know what, it doesn't really apply anymore, and maybe we need to change that? What if your target market changed? What if your client base that you think is your primary client base is no longer in business? Does that change your purpose, or does your purpose still ride through that to then refocus on a new client base? And do you have a loyal customer base that you can stay connected to? So I kind of talked about earlier. So those are all things that I think are really, really important for us. Our purpose has always been to educate and inspire business owners and individuals to become better managers and have a better quality of life. And so when this all hit, absolutely, this is what I want to do. I want to share information. I want to help. And it kind of drove that home for us. And then retooling. Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. His 7th is sharpen the saw, retool. So what are the things you need to be doing differently now? If you've never thought of selling online, think about it. This crisis will go away, but I think we will be different. There will be a lot more people that are going to be connecting through formats like this, or doing online services. It doesn't have to be a product. People think of online a lot of times eBay. No, it can be a service. You can sell services online as well, and finding ways to do that. And for those businesses that are kind of shuttered right now, can you pre-sell services? So Greg yesterday was talking about dental practices. Like I know they're always so booked up. What are they going to do? But it's going to be a deluge when things open up again. I mean, hey, I really need a haircut here. I don't have to have this long in years. And things like that. Everybody's going to be going out there and needing services and products. So if you are not active right now, how can you connect to that client base that you have and maybe pre-schedule some services or sell things or offer discounts to someone who wants to pay up front? Can you sell some kind of subscription or gift certificates or something or schedule? It is just scheduling. I'd be delighted to schedule some services now for a couple months down the road, even knowing that appointment might change and it could be pushed back. It would be nice to have that from a consumer standpoint. Get creative. I love that distilleries immediately started making hand sanitizer. That is really cool. That was really ingenious. Like Woodinville Whiskey out there, if they had thought of themselves, if their purpose was to make whiskey, they never would have thought of this. They never would have come up with that idea. They have a broader purpose, and they were nimble and creative. Just yesterday, I heard that Joey's restaurant is now coming out with Joey's Market. And so they're allowing their customers to come in and actually buy groceries essentially from them to make their own menu items off their menu. And they're also doing curbside pickup with beverages if as needed. And they're also doing delivery. So they're having now 3 channels that didn't exist before. And that's the kind of creativity I think we need during this crisis. High-end restaurants offering cooking classes. I heard this last week. We've got a small high-end restaurant with a great chef that now isn't doing anything, but a great opportunity to maybe have that chef go in and do a recording or even a live broadcast and have online cooking classes. So all these things would take some setting up, and I actually was talking to a restaurant owner recently concerned about going to the takeout because she's concerned about too many people in the kitchen all at once. But you might be able to do some kind of scheduling, have the sous chef go in first and then have the chef go in later or something like that. Can you be creative and make something work? Also, think about serving essential industries. We're focused, a lot of us are focused on what's closed right now and what's going down in terms of revenue. But also, there's a lot of industries that are going up. Obviously, the first responders, healthcare industry, people working in there on the front lines, they need stuff. They're tired, they're overworked. Find ways to serve them. There's a coffee shop in the Midwest that decided to start delivering coffee during the shift change at a hospital, and just for free because he was shut down, and started that way. But then they started, expecting to be there, and the nurses started ordering, and so now they're just doing orders and getting that whole base, and they feel it's a win-win. They're helping, they feel good, they're keeping some revenue stream going. So all those things are, I think, important to think creatively. And I couldn't help but share this with you. Jan actually told me about this yesterday, and I don't know if you watched the Today show, but see if I can get this, and get past all the ads.
Pandemic halting normal activities. Small businesses in Maryland are trying to cope with less foot traffic.
Julie, I think you need to switch the screen share
to
your server.
I was wondering about that. Okay, let me see if I can do.
There we go. Thanks.
Okay.
An 11-year-old dog who has been
I'll put it back for you.
pandemic halting normal activities. Small businesses in Maryland are trying to cope with less foot traffic when one business in Hagerstown has found a unique way to support itself. So everyone meet Soda, an 11-year-old dog who has been a regular employee of Who Entertains Wine Tasters at Stonehouse Urban Winery, but today he's serving a curbside delivery dog that brings wine and cheers to the customer. Good dog, Soda. With the tasting room closed because of the governor's orders and the shrinking numbers of customers, the store's co-owner hopes to increase foot traffic as Soda gains popularity.
They love it. They love Soda. They miss Soda. They keep telling them they're going to be back soon.
Okay, I just thought that was pretty ingenious. If I can get this back in where it's supposed to be. So yeah, get creative. I think that there are opportunities out there. And along those lines, I really want to be sharing ideas. I think brainstorming creative business opportunities would be a really good thing, and we'd like to do our part for that. I was just kind of trying to brainstorm building some kind of a forum, and I actually talked to Michelle about that, and within a couple hours she's put together a Facebook group where we can host and share ideas, motivations, opportunities between, amongst our clients, amongst the community, and maybe help each other out. And we'll post some things up there too that we think are helpful as we go along. I think Michelle actually invited everybody here so far. Well, that's right. Let's see, what did we name it? So calling it Collaboration Hub for now, sponsored by Manfredini Barnfather. So I'm not sure exactly where this is going to go, but we just really want to see what we can do more to help the interaction community and sharing some motivation and give people kudos for doing things, keeping things going. So with that, I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and jump into kind of the details of these tax acts. So now that we have the right frame of mind, we're going to think positively. We're going to go and accomplish some of these things, figure out what our business really needs. Let's see what's out there for us. The first act that came about was this Family's First Coronavirus Response Act, the long acronyms. Basically, this one was to initiate a mandated paid sick leave, employer paid sick leave. And the idea was have employers pay for those who are directly impacted by COVID-19, meaning they actually are sick or are on mandated quarantine, or they're trying to get tested, or they have family member that they have to care for. If the school's closed, got to care for the kids at home. So it is to cover both of those, and it's 2 weeks basically that they're asking employees to pay for, but those 2 weeks in theory are 100% covered by the federal government. You're going to get credits for that. In addition to the 2 weeks, they're also mandating an additional 10 weeks at 2/3 pay only for those employees at home caring for their family, kids, or I think they're like elderly parents, so they would apply as well. That second tier only applies to employees that have worked for the company at least 30 days. The 2 weeks would apply to anybody. If you hired somebody last week and then they got sick, this would apply to them the first 2 weeks. And it's based on their average work schedule. If they're a part-time employee, you'd only pay them part-time. If they're a full-time employee, you'd pay them full-time. How the credit works, well, before I say that, there is an exemption that says there, if you have less than 50 employees, you can get an exemption from this mandate. You'd have to apply for it. And then the criteria for that basically is you think doing this is going to risk the viability of your company, then they're going to let you off the hook. As far as the credit, it will offset 10 days of pay. So initially you're saying you'll pay for 2 weeks, they'll pay you back for 10 days. The reimbursement rate's relatively high, basically $511 per day per employee. So that 10 days, $5,100. And you're gonna get that credit as an employer when you file your quarterly Form 941, which is Social Security, Medicare withholding taxes. And normally you would pay, and actually technically you do a deposit ahead of time, but instead of depositing those funds with the IRS, you would then calculate the credit and reduce the amount of that tax deposit. And that's 100% credit against up to that $5,000 per employee. So that allows you an immediate reimbursement basically, because those 941 deposits happen every payroll for most people, most businesses. So that's how that works. Then we have the loans. This is the big thing. Everybody's asking about the loans, and especially the disaster loan and the paycheck protection loan. There are 3 that came out. The express loan is the 3rd one. And I'm just going to quickly kind of go over these because you've heard about these before. I just want to zero in on kind of what the differences are and how they might apply. This express loan is what it sounds like. It's designed to be the fastest. Get your money as fast as possible. But the maximum amount is $25,000, and you have to repay it in 7 years. You apply with your lender, not directly with SBA. The SBA Disaster Loan. Disaster loans have been around for quite some time, like you hear, in other parts of the country, hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that. And if there's a disaster area declared federally, then these loans come into play. And this one's just kind of designed for this current disaster. I think it's a good option for those businesses who are shut down right now and don't have employees, or they're very reduced employees. They're paying less. You can, all these numbers are pretty high compared to small businesses. $2 million, but you have to have collateral. If you don't have any collateral, you can go up to $25,000 without that. So that's a pretty quick influx of cash. The big piece of this particular loan, a $10,000 advance payment. So you apply online with SBA. You check a box now, and they've revamped the website to add that in. And you say, yes, I'd like to be considered for this advance payment because my business has been impacted. And that advance does not have to be paid. And even if you're declined for the loan, you decide not, or if you're approved, you decide not to take the loan proceeds, you don't have to pay that advance back. The criteria is that you need to be physically present in that disaster area. And there's a few industries that don't qualify. And how do I use the funds? So you would have still have to qualify to have some impact and use that money for working capital, basically. They're not designed for replacing lost sales or for expansion. So that's kind of where they put the parameters on this loan. This one, this payment protection loan, or actually I think it's paycheck protection loan, I might have messed that up, but this is probably the most popular, I would guess, what I'm hearing the most about. Well, for us, we're hearing both, the disaster loan and this one. But this is, I think, best for businesses still operating and paying their employees. It starts April 3rd, 2 days, so at this point, no one has actually been able to apply yet, but we're expecting a deluge on this one. And you do have to go to your bank or lender, bank, credit union. I do recommend you go to a lender that has a team of experienced SBA loan officers, loan servicers, because this is going to be kind of crazy busy, and you want someone who knows SBA process. This loan is potentially forgivable. That's why it's so popular. And there's no collateral or personal guarantee. And the whole point of this loan, why they put this into play, is to try to encourage employers to keep their employees working. And so there are definitely some restrictions around that. It starts April 3rd, as I said, it ends June 30th. It's a pretty short window. And we're hearing you better do it. If you're going to do it really soon, because they're probably going to run out of money before June 30th shows up. It's going to be that popular. The one caveat of this loan is you cannot claim the employee retention credit if you get this loan. They're kind of mutually exclusive because they're both giving you money back. And I'll talk about that employee retention credit a little bit later. The maximum loan amount, it's not big. They keep throwing this number around 10 million, but really the maximum loan amount is 2.5 months of your average payroll cost. So as an example, look at if you had $120,000 in annual wages you paid to your employees last year in 2019, that's divide that by 12, it's 10,000 a month. Your maximum loan amount is 25,000. So that'll cover you for 2.5 months of that. You don't have to use it just on payroll costs, but there's some incentives for doing that. And by the way, 100,000 annual cap per employee. So you only get to count when you're looking at payroll costs for any particular employee a maximum of 100,000 in what you paid them. So the forgiveness piece, the relevant period for that is the 8 weeks after you get the funds. So that's what we're going to look at to say, or that's what the feds are going to look at, or your lender, to see whether you deserve forgiveness or not. And you look at that and say, what did you use the funds for? Did you use them for the qualified expenses, which are basically payroll costs, rent, interest on mortgages, utilities? And as long as at least 75%, well, once you have to qualify for those, and then if 75% of those qualified costs were for payroll, then you are likely going to get 100% forgiveness on that. If you don't meet that criteria, it's not a cliff. They're just going to reduce the forgiveness down if you don't quite make that. And if you've already laid off your workers, you can bring them back and qualify for this loan. You have until June 30th to do that. You do have to apply for that forgiveness. And I'm getting some conflicting information on what the interest rate really is for that portion that's not forgiven, if you're in that situation. I read yesterday, and the information came out just out of that the lender packets and thing, is 0.5%. And they're saying that it's not going to be different for different applicants, like it's not based on credit score, but most of the things I'm reading, it says up to 4%. So I'm not really clear on that one. We're hoping to get more clarification. And I'm reading that the loan's due in 2 years. But the whole concept of this is, if you're in this situation where you're trying to keep people on board, you're going to get basically a reimbursement for 2.5 months of your payroll costs and some operating costs. So that's what you're kind of going for. The the term and all that isn't as relevant in that case. So the employee retention credit, this is what I referred to earlier. So to qualify for this, and here's your decision tree. It's like, well, maybe a lot of people aren't even going to qualify for this credit, so they're going to want to go for the loan. The business must be fully or partially suspended. So this is really for those companies that have taken a severe hit, either had to close their doors, or like the restaurants are doing takeout, they're going to be severely diminished in terms of their revenue, and that revenue has to drop 50% from the prior year. The credit is 50% of the wages paid up to $10,000. So basically it's $5,000 per employee. You can get a credit against that. And you can include health insurance in that calculation. And there's some other kind of factors like small business. It gets claimed on the Form 941 again, your quarterly report. But the first one you can do is second quarter. So first quarter just ended yesterday. Normally this 941s would be due end of April. So you don't get to count that. The first quarter you can actually utilize this credit would be second quarter due July 31st. And it's a little bit relevant in terms of your timing on making that decision. I know that payroll companies are asking people to opt in on some of these things, that these third-party payroll processors. And so since it's not going to matter until starting like today is the first day of the second quarter, but the tax reports aren't going to be due for a few months. You got some time here to kind of figure this out before I'd wait to opt in before you know which direction you're going to go. As it says there, you're just going to apply the credit against your tax deposit liability, kind of similar to the other program I was talking about. And the other little piece that's not talked about all that much is, without applying for really anything or opting in, you can get a payroll tax deferral. It is only for the employer portion. So if you're, not jumping on the bandwagon for any of these things, well, I could at least, when I file my quarterly 941s, I can just not pay the 6.2% employer share of Social Security, and I can hang on to that for all the way till 2022. Like half of it gets paid in December 2021, the rest a year later. So that's one thing you can think about, and you don't have to decide on that one right away either. It was the start date is the date of enactment. That's why it's 3/27. So I have a couple of little things: net operating losses, 5-year carryback. So for the corporations that had profits and they limited that carryback in the last tax act, they've kind of like released that, let the floodgates open. There's no 80% limit now. You just go back and get some refunds back. So that's a good way to get some money. Qualified improvement property, they fixed a technical correction on that. This is the restaurant industry has been wanting this for a while. So basically leasehold improvements, if you want to do some remodeling right now, something like that, you can write it all off in 1 year instead of 15 years or 39 years is what it kind of got pushed to accidentally. That's what the bonus depreciation allows you to take 100% in 1 year. And the other one I thought was interesting is relief of a federal alcohol excise tax for hand sanitizer. So I thought that was kind of proactive. They actually thought about to put that in there. It's like, so if you normally pay a federal excise tax on making whiskey, for example, they made sure that you don't have to pay it when you've switched over and now you're making hand sanitizer. So, but only to 2020, so only to the end of this year. State and local help, we do have some of that too. The most relevant for most small businesses is going to be the monthly, if you're on a monthly state sales B&O tax return. That payment extension has been pushed out to June 25th, so it's 2 months. And they do want you to file on time if possible and ask for the extension, but they're not going to really require that, but it's a good idea to do that. Just request it. And then if it's first quarter, that has a new due date to June 30th. And if you're an annual filer, that's now been pushed to June 15th. And it used to be like January to file. And then it went to April, and now it's June. So, and the last thing just came out, well, City of Seattle, also 1031 for both first and second quarters. So these are all things that when we talked earlier about, hey, can you look at extending payments out? These are gifts. You don't have to make a phone call for most of these. I mean, if you want to extend out your rent payment or something, you got to call your landlord. But these are, the government is actually giving you these things without much effort whatsoever. So that plays into your 3-month cash flow plan. How does that change things? And remember to put that, it's not going away. So remember to put that out there and that extended deadline that it's going to be due then. And then real estate taxes just got pushed to June 1st from April 30th. So that's, kind of the gamut of things of state and local help and all the layers that that we've found that I think are kind of relevant to everybody right now. There's lots more. We have a bunch of, in the slides I got a bunch of links to websites that, we're going to share. We'll be adding more on our website and pushing things out, probably working with Chamber of Commerce on that as well, to how we can best share information as it comes in. This one I shared too. This is from a colleague of mine, Debbie Highland. She's part of our Partners Forum, and I thought this was just kind of a great little resource to, little one-page handout. Okay, crisis, what do I do? What do I talk to this about my team? Here's all these little quadrants. I got cash flow, I got planning. What are the things I can do if I'm paralyzed and what to do next? I just pick this up and read it. That's something I can do easily. And all these books are good books. We have both Clockwork and Pumpkin Plan here, and I've read parts of Profit First. So these are some good time to read if you are shuttered, have a little more extra time. It's a great time to catch up on some things to improve your business. So I'm gonna, before we hit to the official Q&A, I do want to just kind of leave you with a few key questions here that you might want to ask yourself. So what have you learned about your business during the interruption that you didn't know before? Is there something, if you ponder that, is there something valuable that comes out of that question? What opportunities to fix things can you take advantage of? And last, as your business returns to normal, what opportunities are there for you to better serve your customers? So that, I'm ready to take questions if people have them. And like I said before, my little teaser is that if you stay throughout the Q&A session, I do have a little video I think you might think is fun, and if nothing else, I think it's relevant, but if nothing else, it'll be memorable.
So we'll, if you want to pause the screen share for now, and we can come back to that afterwards. That way we can catch everybody. Great.
Okay, here we are.
Greg, do you want to lead the Q&A? We've collected a few questions from folks that came up, some of which may have been sort of addressed in the comment thread, in the chat thread, but I'll start with the first one I noticed came up from Olivia, and it's about, when talking about pre-selling services, the kind of conundrum, like maybe gift card conundrum and the pre-sale conundrum of, you know, having a cash flow now, but then it reduces cash flow when business comes back. Because people are coming in to cash in on those. So do you have any advice for managing that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If we're talking about, like, say, for example, gift cards, you're absolutely right. Like, restaurants selling gift cards right now is kind of, I think, a double-edged sword. To say that, yeah, it might bring some revenue, a little bit of revenue in now, but then you're giving away those services once you're up and running and have even more expenses than now. I'm thinking more along the lines of pre-selling maybe a service offering that you're going to provide later, and get that in, and maybe you get like a monthly, maybe something up front if you want to prepay for some of it now, and spread that out. I don't have all the answers on that one, but keeping that, it comes down to keeping that communication line going, and maybe finding ways to spread out that cash flow. Granted, it doesn't change the fact that a company's not open right now. It's not going to dump a lot of money in right now. I think that's where you're going to some of these other sources. They're the resources we've got that the government's putting out there to help. But I think that there's, you know, thinking of it creatively, there's some avenues or some business can utilize that. It's not going to work for everybody.
Yeah, and there's the potential, you know, as we all know with gift cards, they get purchased and never used, and you just essentially have that revenue holding out there. I know there has been some people expressing concern over buying gift cards and the uncertainty of businesses staying open and, you know, losing that revenue, but I'm not sure if that's the biggest concern for everybody at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that some people just want to support the local community and support their restaurants, and they may not be as, you know, worried about that, whether they use the gift card later or not. And certainly a business might want to put some limitations on how many, you know, they want to sell, something like that, if they're concerned about. Okay.
Well, Marissa was asking, do you know where people can apply for the exemption for the FCRA for the 80-hour week additional sick pay? So if in paying that additional sick pay would put your business at risk, you know, as financially, do you know?
Yeah, I have not seen clarification on that yet. Information to be coming exactly on how would you apply for that. I haven't found the answer in anything that I've seen so far.
When is the next big kind of information dump? Is it on Friday?
Yeah, for the loans, because the loans are going to start on Friday.
Okay.
Secretary of Treasury I think it's like in the next week or so. I think they're focused on these loans right now. I would expect next week to have more clarification on some of these other items. We're just going to try to keep on top of it and see what we can find out. And like I say, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of keep connected with the community too, so we can keep pushing out information.
So another one was, can the PPP be used for, if your employees are usually commission and you've decided to convert them to hourly during this kind of interim phase?
Yeah, I think what's going to happen on that is looking at the overall wage expense, like how much did you pay that person on commission on average for last year. Let's say you look at calendar year 2019 in your overall wages and versus what they're paying now. So if you're paying them by hourly and it ends up being half of what they used to be paid commission, that is a reduction, but it's not specific to how they're paid. That's just the total.
And then another one was for the loan forgiveness on the PPP. It says if you hire back 90% of your staff, what if somebody doesn't have the work essentially to get their workforce back to that level? What kind of happens at that point? And is there you need to have 90% of your staff hired back by June 30th? How long do you have to keep those individuals as well? So what if there happens to be another downturn or issue?
Right. Off the top of my head, I don't remember in terms of the second part of that question about how long the retention period is, but I do remember reading something about that. So I'd have to follow up on that one. But if you're bringing those individuals back, but it's still not as much as not high level as it was before, then you're probably gonna have partial forgiveness. It's not gonna be 100% forgiveness, but worst case scenario, you don't get the debt forgiven. You have a debt with really low terms and time to pay it off. I mean, I don't think that's the intention, but from my perspective, I wouldn't let it scare me if I felt like I was a good candidate for that. I wouldn't do it if I had no intention to bring it back or I didn't think it was feasible. But if it's feasible, I think that it's a good program.
Okay.
But nobody can guarantee what's really going to happen.
Are there any other questions that? Oh, there's one more. It says, can the PPP be used to pay rent?
Yes.
Just interest accrued on the rent?
No, rent.
It cannot be used to pay rent.
Yeah. I think so you can pay rent, utilities, interest on. You don't get to pay for the principal on debt. You get to pay interest.
Okay. Those are the end of the questions that we pulled out of the chat. Is there any other questions that people have that have come up? You want to just unmute yourself and ask Julie? Seems like Julie nailed it.
Is that no more questions?
So is Manfredini Barnfather taking on new clients if there are people that need a CPA?
We're taking on business clients. Those that want to work with us throughout the year to help them grow their business or help them thrive. And so we always have been and will. Our limitation and resources is just taking on individual tax returns during tax season. So we want to make sure we have those resources available for the business clients that really need our help, and that is a good match for us. So absolutely, that's what we want to help our community.
I want to call attention to Jan's comment. So Jan is Julie's partner at Manfredini and Barnfather. Thank you, Jan. She said the SBA Disaster Loan process was updated last weekend and streamlined. The application process is simple, and at the end of the application, you can check the box that says you would like to be considered for the $10,000 loan advance. And per the website, you should have the funds deposited in your bank within 3 days. So thank you for pointing that out to us, Jan.
Yeah, so that the loan won't be, but the advance is supposed to come within 3 days. We'll see. Yeah, a lot of people are applying for that. There are a lot of clients kind of checking in with us on applying for that to get that $10,000 advance. The criteria seems to be pretty generous in terms of the ability to qualify for that.
And and any CPA working for any of our businesses would be able to kind of help them navigate, all of these programs, because I'm assuming you guys are all spending a lot of time, digging through and will know your clients and be able to kind of better position or better direct them of where they should be going.
Right. And for these loan programs, there is free help too. And I had originally put that in one of the slides, but I'll have it in our resource thing. But like SCORE has been around a long time. There are a few nonprofit organizations that are offering free assistance for some of these loans. For the paycheck protection loans, it looks like they're doing more kind of they've in the structure of the loan allowed for what they're calling an agent support. So someone to help gather that information, and that person, that agent, and it could be an accountant or an attorney or consultant, can get paid through the loan, through the lender, basically, and not have to charge the client, the applicant, for that. So,
as was pointed out yesterday, be careful of charlatans offering to take money up front to process your loan applications and take a percentage of what you get. There are those individuals out there. Be sure to, make sure that they're a trusted individual, like, an established CPA firm, who are here and not going to be doing this over the phone or trying to take your money.
yeah, trying to take a cut of your loan proceeds or something like that. But yeah, so there's lots of options, and we are, as we get information, just trying to figure out how best to help clients. And like I said to Kim the other day when I was talking before her presentation, it's like, well, if there are free resources out there and if they're good, hey, that's where I'll definitely point our clients there. But if they're not able to really help clients gather documents and do that piece of it, we're here to help with that. And so we're just figuring out where do we best fit in. It's all coming so fast that we want to do what is the most helpful for our clients without being redundant in another service that's already offered.
Marissa, did you have another question? Got you muted, but there we go.
I was just asking if you recommended that we talk to our own CPAs for guidance for, that's more specific to our business. It sounded like that's what you're kind of recommending right now.
Yeah, I think you have a relationship with someone. Definitely talk to your own CPA who knows your business and knows you. That's the first place to go, and see whether they can help you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for everybody who's on the call. Appreciate everybody taking the time, and hopefully, some of this information and links and resources was helpful. We'll try to get all those useful links that Julie shared out in the presentation and get those out to everybody.
And if anybody wants to stay for the video,
I was going to say,